get started.
All right. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We have the approval of the minutes from our September meeting. Can we get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. This is Deetra.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. And budget report.
Budget report sent in a packet to all board members for the details. However, this is a summary. We do have our rollover amount from the previous year at $3,476,000. So that's incorporated into the summary that you see up above. Revenue is running pretty close to where we thought it was. Our expenses are just about even with that. So we're doing just fine. Any expenses over the past month are listed here. There is no surprises, just I can go through a couple things really quick. The call to recycle battery boxes is for placing lithium style batteries in a secure way and shipping them back. It's an industry battery buyback program that we're starting to use, which I think is going to be safer and can be open to other people as well. Let's see. The pop-up shredding service is from our pop-up drop-off events. If you guys remember, we took that over from Metro Council paying for those. So we have that. I think this might be the first or second one that's popped up on our event, on our the cost of service study. The first payment on that has arrived, and we are in the process of moving forward with that process. No other expenses over $5,000 that would require board approval. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, if there are no questions, can we get a motion to approve the budget report as presented?
Motion to approve the report.
In a second.
I second it. This is Deetra.
Any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
Any opposed? All right, budget report is approved. We'll move to correspondence to the board.
Yes, we intended to have a letter from the Center for Accessibility regarding waste hauler set out variances. This is, we did not receive it in time for the meeting, but I had put it here as a placeholder. There isn't anybody here to speak to it, so I would like to go ahead and table this until the next meeting.
Okay. Do we need I don't think we need a motion to table that, right?
Probably not, right?
All right. Let's, we don't have any action items today, so we'll move on to new business. We have the draft letter to KYTC regarding interstates.
Yes, at the last meeting, we had Rob Lush from the Clean Collab coordinator give us an overview of what Clean Collab does. And as part of that discussion and presentation, it came up about the condition of the interstates and what we were doing. And the board wanted me to go ahead and draft a letter to KYTC regarding the interstates. I have drafted that. I put that into your packet previously, I think last Friday, and I made a couple of edits today, and I resent that out. I apologize for the two versions. What you see on the screen right here is the current version of that letter. If anyone has any questions or the letter, concerns, I'd be happy to answer.
I guess one word, Pete, first line. Litter is a growing problem. Yes, it is, but it's also an ongoing problem. Which word would be better? Growing or ongoing, I guess is my question. I mean, it's been around for a long time, the issue.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably kind of semantics. I'm not sure that it would make too much of a material difference. And it sounds like, Pete, you said you sent did you already send the letter out, or is this still, you're presenting this for approval?
No, I'm presenting this for approval, which we discussed at the last meeting. Yes. So I agree with Sean. It's really kind of immaterial, and it could be both, to be honest with you, but I don't know that it has either bigger impact either way. It does seem to be getting worse, so I guess that's why I use the word growing.
Very good.
I would say when you frame it as a growing problem, it likely creates more sense of urgency. If something's ongoing, then it's like, well, maybe you've been dealing with it, it's status quo. Growing problem makes it sound like it's something that really needs to be addressed a little bit more. So I would be in favor of the letter as presented.
One
Any
question
other-
in paragraph 3, right in the middle. Says demands placed on Highway District 5 leaders have contributed by funding for interstate cleanings during the off mowing season. Is that the actual current frequency for?
Yes. The Clean Collab funds 4 sweeps. I think they're November, December, late January, February. I think Rob is here. He could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically to keep the highways better when the mowing season is not there, when the state's not doing any mowing. So if we hadn't been doing this in the past, the interstates would look 10 times worse in the winter. So it is 4, and it is approximately $550,000 for
Wow.
us to do these 4 cleanings. So it's a significant amount of money.
Would it be useful to put that statistic in there so they understand how much money we're throwing out there to do their job?
We can certainly consider that. I did have a version that included it. Our audience here being people that probably deal with hundreds of millions of dollars, I didn't know if 550,000 would be lost on them. It's a significant amount for us, but I'm not sure that it had any impact on the way that they would view it. So I've had it both ways, and I'll take any opinions of the board whether I should include that.
I would say if we're going to include a cost, I'd probably frame it as a % of our annual revenue.
Okay.
Because then in that figure would put it into context, how significant of an expense it is for us.
I'll take a look at that and see what that looks like. I can send that out to you guys to get your thoughts on it. I'm not sure how that would look in the letter as far as the percentage goes. The percentage of what is one of my concerns: Metro government budget or Department of Public Works budget. So I'll look at it and see if I can't frame it and I can make those adjustments and send it for your consideration. Of course, we won't necessarily be able to vote on it unless you allow me that in the vote, the consideration to change those.
Yeah, I think we can make a motion to approve the letter, the draft, with the flexibility to insert the percentage, the quantification of expense. Would anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, as Andy made the motion, oh, okay, I see you on camera there, Andy. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
All right, a second from Debbie. Any further discussion or questions about this? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and the draft is approved, allowing the adjustment with the quantification of cost.
One question, do you think we need to get Jennifer's approval, or at least, I don't want to say approval, but consideration of the letter before it goes out to District 5?
Sorry. We spoke earlier with Deputy Mayor George on the letter and the contents, and we feel pretty good about the content. I think we're good on an approval as far as anything from the city, and I mean, it's definitely an effort that we support.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, next we have the Secure Your Load campaign.
Okay, so staff has been working really hard with other Metro leaders to combat this litter issue along the highways and along our roadways. And we've been working and talking about a lot of things. One of the things that we feel like that we need to do is have some kind of securing your load campaign. And this campaign would impact, number one, haulers, because haulers, from the number of calls that we've received, tend to catch a lot of it from the public saying that they're guilty, whether they are or not. But we was going to approach this from a waste hauler standpoint. So this campaign would include some components of that, but it would also include a social media campaign to the general public, because I believe that the general public is also don't do a very good job of securing their loads along the highways and roadways. And then just making a regular campaign out of it, using creating a waste district website page or landing page, billboard and point of signage being specific to disposal facilities, if they'll agree to allow us to have the requirements at their gate for people when they come in, and then an enforcement component. So I did want to kind of go through this, and I want to emphasize that this is not a finished product. It is an idea, and we would love to discuss it further. So the first thing is a letter to all the waste haulers, and basically it is asking them to ensure that their vehicles are in proper working order with their covers, that they're ensuring that their staff is doing these things properly and as required. And it's been tough because we've had a lot of staff issues in the industry in the past 5 years. And plus, trying to get new vehicles has also been an issue. So this is a letter that's going to remind them of the requirements and to tell them in the coming months that we are going to be out enforcing this and doing spot checks along the highways, and that potentially there can be some fines. So this is a pretty big heads up letter. to let them know that it's coming, to give them time to react and prepare, and then for us to get it out there. This is the social media post that for the general public. I have, if you see some of these things on the side, it says secure your load for safer roads. These little symbols are things that I found from other communities that would be a symbol to that. It doesn't have to be any one of these, but it's basically looking at some other campaigns that took place just to give you guys an idea of what we can put out there. This is the website. What we would want to include there is the impacts, because I'm not sure that everybody understands the magnitude of this problem. To understand the litter laws that are here in our community, how they can help, whether that's be giving them links to Brightside or Clean Collab or other organizations with all those links. And the other one would potentially be the billboard or the point of signage. All of it having any signage having a QR code that takes you to the landing page. And then the last part, the enforcement side, and this is probably a little bit different from some of the packets that you received, but basically what we're looking to do, what we feel like would be impactful, is to have some kind of annual or periodic inspection of vehicles that have to ensure that their loads, their vehicles have operating covers and that they're in good condition. And that would typically be at a licensing time. It would not typically include packers or front load trucks, because they don't necessarily have covers. We're talking about a much more limited number of roll-off trucks and potentially just ensuring that compactors have their covers for the rear. We was also looking at station and solid waste officers near disposal facilities or in places that they can get a good visual of trucks, getting images of them, and doing some little bit of research and potentially doing some enforcement or reminder letters. Use of cameras, we're always short of enforcement officers. So this is another option that if we have cameras that we can utilize, that would be a potential way for us to increase our enforcement without much time and from staff. Of course, citations under Chapter 51503B, and that chapter does require that vehicles secure their loads. And then, this doesn't, to run a campaign and do all these things, we are short-staffed. So hiring of a solid waste officer could be very beneficial, and it would cost us about $85,000 to do that. We could do that through existing waste management district revenue, increased license fees, or a combination of the two. One thing to keep in mind, increased license fees do come with impacts. And what we need to do is consider the impact on large and small haulers. A larger annual fee can be a bigger impact for the smaller haulers, and they wouldn't want to get licensed because of that. Whereas a lower annual fee and a higher vehicle fee would be a much bigger impact for larger haulers with over 100 vehicles. So I would want to ensure that we're discussing this with our stakeholders, the hauling community, to come up with a balanced way to do that if we so choose to go in that direction. So this is the idea for the campaign, looking for some feedback from the individuals here, what I would say is I would want to partner with our members from the hauling community to discuss this further and come back to you with a more solid proposal. And, our choice here is to do this campaign in-house or utilize our contract with Field Trip to amplify this a little bit more and to build it out even bigger. We haven't discussed our next anti-litter campaign, but I believe it's time to do so, and we could possibly include this in that process. So I'm anxious to hear any feedback that the board members may have or the hauler community may have.
So
Yeah,
I guess the first question that I have is, do we, if we were just going to fund it, so first, I love the idea of the campaign. I definitely think it's something that needs a lot of awareness, especially for just anybody hauling things with a truck. Um, I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse right now because I want to first address the solid waste officer and then kind of roll back to like how we communicate it. But regarding the solid waste officer, is that something that we could simply afford through room we have in our annual budget?
I believe we could. One thing is for sure that as disposal fees have increased, so has the license fee on gross receipts, which means that the waste district is getting additional funds. And I think seeing the rollover amount that came up in our budget, it shows that we do have plenty of money. However, I would also say that it has been in the 5-year solid waste management plan to redo our assisted service recycling centers to accept more material. And there was a significant amount of money that was loosely earmarked to do that. So while we have that rollover amount, I want to keep in mind of the things that we still need to do according to the 5-year solid waste management plan. But to answer your question, yes, I think that it is affordable. I do think that if we could stand to increase our license fees, so, and we have not done so in a long time, probably since before back in the early 2000 or late 1990s.
And then, fines, at least initially, would slightly offset it. But what about having, seasonal, I guess another alternative would be to have, instead of a solid waste officer for the year, have someone who is like a contract employee for, a couple seasons or for half the year or something like that, and just have that as like a, an annual contract. If there end up being tighter budget constraints, that's just another consideration.
I think it's an interesting angle to this, something that I have not considered. Off the top of my head, it would be a sworn person. So if you're contracting this, people would tend to think that that would be a government official. So I think that that's something to investigate, and we'll do so.
Okay. And then just the last bit of feedback. I heard some great stuff about how we could communicate this. Of course, letters to the waste haulers, social, billboards. Have we considered like a radio campaign? Something like 840. I know a lot of people listen to 840, DJX. Stations like that, where it has a really broad reach. And my understanding is that for your reach, while of course it's more expensive than social media advertising, radio advertising still gets to a lot of ears.
I think it's a good point and something certainly that we should consider. And what I would say is that hauling is a thing that there's, according to our letter, there's 100,000 vehicles that ride into Louisville each day to come to work. If you have radio, it reaches beyond the boundaries of Jefferson County to catch some of the people that may be traveling to Louisville and get that message to them as well. So I do see some benefit to that.
Pete, this is Lori with Brightside. Radio is a good option. There is an option to do it. So almost all of the radio stations have PSA space that they give to nonprofit organizations. So if you approach it from that lens, you may be able to get a 30-second radio spot at no cost.
That's an interesting thing. The Waste District isn't necessarily a nonprofit. However, Brightside is.
Brightside
Uh,
is, and I was going to say, so I very much like the public input component of it too, because oftentimes we have groups that come to us for their initial cleanups. They get supplies from us, but then they don't always use Clean Collaborative to have those bags picked up. So I think it would be important to also include the literature in our team leader packets that we're giving out. So we would be happy to partner and potentially get that PSA space for radio.
That sounds good. Have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, input?
I really like this. This is really well put together. I really like the emphasis on the small haulers, the pickup trucks, the small trailers and whatnot, hauling, as mentioned earlier, seasonal materials, brush, etc. As well as we all see the stuff not secured or blowing out of a back end of a pickup truck, etc., etc. And stuff just falling off these small haulers and whatnot. So I really like that emphasis. Though the thing that I've noticed over the years are primarily from the front loader trucks, picking up paper-ish type materials. They leave a site, there's a nice wind blowing, and then suddenly, whoosh, we get a huge amount of paper coming out of the dump area of the front loaders and blowing onto the streets, and then somebody has to go pick all that up. So that's a tough one to deal with. I don't see a lot coming out of the purchasable waste trucks and whatnot. It's the ones picking up generally recyclables and whatnot that cause most of the materials coming out of a truck. And boy, I always hated that because, whether it be swims or roads or whatnot, somebody had to go pick that up many times after hours at overtime to address it. And it was paper all over the place on the street. So
Yeah.
how to address that? I don't know.
Yes, the front load trucks are part of the consideration, definitely. And we are looking at ways to do that. To bring in the small haulers, I can tell you that there's been an explosion of small haulers out on the streets. It seems to be a very popular thing to do. Everybody can get a trailer and be out there hauling. Problem that we have is that there are a lot of them that are unlicensed. And we need to get a handle on that. We try to find them and contact them, but sometimes we can get them, but we don't know where they're at. And so I think that there's another thing that we need to look at. Also, we have to be careful about raising license fees too much, as I said earlier, because that's going to de-incentivize small haulers from getting a license. And we have some small haulers that we know are out there advertising that we can't find that are illegally dumping everywhere. We do need to get a handle on that. So one other avenue, I think, is a discussion that we have with disposal facilities is how we can get these small haulers licensed, potentially by driving them there from when they go to a disposal facility. So I think that there's a big conversation that needs to take place that considers all these factors.
Yeah, and I would just say also, I mean, obviously, as it gets further down the road, you would have to have some clear definitions of what counts as securing a load for different types of loads, different types of vehicles, especially if you're going to start issuing fines. Which, again, if you're not complying with regulations, that's why the fines exist as a deterrent. But I think it's going to have to be a more clear, in the initial communication, what that includes. And it's going to be two different sort of communication campaigns under the same the same umbrella, from small haulers with pickup trucks to, to larger, collection vehicles.
Sure, I'm excited to have that conversation, and I agree with you. There's more to come, and we are.
No, I assume that there would be, right? It's not all going to be in one.
There are people out there hauling now that have no cover, and they have stuff flying everywhere. Those are the easy ones. So I think Deputy Mayor George has her hand up.
Yes. First of all, I just want to give a big thanks to you, Pete, and to Sarita and Jenna. You guys have done such tremendous work. For anyone who doesn't know, Pete, we meet monthly with the collaborative team, and he has really gone above and beyond in the way of, again, trying to problem solve and to really, act with intention and be thoughtful and try to solve the problem. So anyway, Pete, thank you so much to you and your team.
Thank you.
One thought that comes to mind, if I could, just real quickly, and this is maybe the system popped up, it came to mind about it. There are an awful lot of Metro employees out there that are out on the street. And I know this discussion was held in past years. Nothing really happened from it, I guess. But maybe some training, for lack of a better term, or information to those who are out on the street on a regular basis to let them know what to look for in these situations, what the law is, what enforcement actions could be taken. If they can gather some information, if they see somebody, with materials coming out of their truck or trailer, what do you do with that information immediately, long term, whatever, to try to address it with those offenders?
Yes, and what I would tell you is that we have more people aware of it today than we ever have, and we do get calls about it. And one of the more difficult things that we do is we can have someone call, but we have no proof, not enough to do an enforcement action. We can send some notes about, hey, we saw this, can you go take care of this and, talk to your driver. We do that. However, if we do want to issue a fine, we need to be able to back that up with evidence. And so therein lies a part of the problem. Also, there are a lot of people with dash cams out there, but one thing that I do know is that litter can become flying out of a truck, but it doesn't necessarily show up well on a image or a video. And that's also been a little bit of an issue for us too. So I agree, Brian, awareness is a big thing. I think this campaign brings awareness, not just to Metro government employees, but to Louisvillians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is Rob, and just speaking of awareness, as Brian said and Pete said, awareness has to be for everybody. If you look at other areas like Tennessee, a few years back, did an awareness campaign with haulers, police departments, sheriff's departments, judges, prosecutors, like everybody, just to bring the awareness of like the litter laws, what can happen, and so on. So. Other places are having issues with this, obviously, and awareness is always their first step. So yeah, I certainly appreciate Pete and his team, as Deputy Mayor Nicole George said, and with all the work they've been doing on it.
Thank you.
All right. Do we need to take any action on this this evening, Pete?
I do not. I think that one thing that I would want is the board to just acknowledge the fact that the advisory committee could work on potentially doing this, and that also to support the staff in working with stakeholders, particularly the waste haulers, in drafting and in creating this. I think we will probably come back to you when it comes time to truly create the campaign. Karen does a great job in organizing that. And, we've had some discussions and whether or not that we would want to use Field Trip for this and what we can and cannot do. So, Karen, do you have anything that you would want to add?
I guess just, I've really enjoyed working with Field Trip as a vendor that does communication campaigns, it's digital media, shares all of the impacts and can read all of that data, share it out. So I've learned a lot, but still don't really consider myself an expert in that. It's not necessarily the big portion of my job, but so I guess not necessarily knowing today from the board, but maybe Sean and Carl with some more expertise with campaigns like that. If the impact is hard to measure, I think, but I would be curious if you think it's worth having the vendor kind of doing that at a cost to us. Otherwise, it's basically just a cost of our time and normal staff time, I guess, to work on things. So that's kind of what Pete and I have discussed on back and forth on, what's worth having Field Trip do. I'm not a graphic designer. So I personally would like to have Field Trip be involved, but it might require a conversation with them on cost of their service based on level, because it's quite a bit of money to do the full-on campaigns that we've done before. So I think Pete was trying to maybe save a little money in that. So I don't know if Carl or Sean or anyone else with some expertise in that has any thoughts or guidance.
So first I'm gonna follow up with what Pete said. Karen, I think you do an awesome job. So I'd be more than willing to help support. But yeah, and I think part of the discussion would just be in terms of costs, like from Field Trip. I mean, so you guys' time is valuable, and if it's within the budget and certain cost range where it's not exorbitant, anything like that, obviously it probably makes sense to do that. But I mean, and we'd be willing to help support whatever way too. We have some design capabilities, but so however we can support you, you have my support or our support.
When I look at this, like I said, I love it, and I'm so glad that Deputy Mayor George spoke up, because when I saw this in our packet for the evening, she was the first person I thought of, because we've had these conversations before about trucks, haulers, not securing their loads, and in fact, when I pulled up our text thread, I had a draft of a text to her saying that there was a bike in the back of this hauler, this truck, and I guess I never pulled up the picture and sent it to her or something. So I don't know what happened to that, but I know that it is something that is ongoing. I've seen it, she's seen it, and has certainly campaigned for it. So I think this is very, very worthwhile, and not just now, but on an ongoing basis. So on that note, this is something that I see as being a really good off-the-shelf campaign. Something that we can use the same collateral and refresh it, once a year, or bare minimum once every couple of years, and put it back out there. And if we have those resources, then it's going to make the overall cost of this very low, especially long term. As far as partnering with Field Trip on this, I'd probably just say, like, let's look at whatever we budgeted for for campaigns and see what we can do there. Maybe we can kind of partner with them on certain efforts and do some other things in house. But yeah, I love it.
Deputy Mayor George also wrote in the chat, could we measure impact based on complaints or assessment of hotspots? And on that note, I do think this type of campaign might be a little easier to measure, just because we know where a lot of the issues are, I guess. So that's a good thought as far as measurement. You know, litter all around Louisville can be hard to measure impact and awareness. It's hard to measure, but maybe there are some hotspots for interstates and things like that that where we could really see a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, one thing that I would add on that is I need to go back and check, but I think at 2 meetings ago, I presented on a potential program called City Detect that was used in Atlanta. I've not heard any updates on that, but I would love to go back to doing that. I think that is the solution for measuring our impact, and one that I would hope that the Waste District would support with funding as well. But let me go back and look at that as well, because, you know, measurement has always been very difficult for us when it comes to these things, and we're looking for any ways to do it.
So do we need a motion to send this to the advisory board, or are we good to move forward?
Can we, well, let me say this. I'm not sure if Bruce is here.
I'm here, Pete.
Okay. I mean, if you guys feel comfortable just asking that in general, or if you want to make it a motion, that's up to the boards to decide. Sometimes having something in a motion and a direct, this is what we want the committee to do, is beneficial, I believe. I don't know if Bruce would agree with that.
I think it's important to have the direction and the goal outlined in the direction that we get from the 109 board, so that we kind of focus on the outcome as wanted, and we don't deviate too much.
Okay. Well, can we hear a motion to move forward with supporting this the Secure Your Load campaign by sending it to the advisory board?
This is Deidre. So
Can we hear a second?
I second.
Any further discussion or questions?
Do we want to put any direction on there? You know, like what to do, what to look at first, what to look at second, etc. Like the funding and whatnot, that could probably wait for a long time. Maybe just consider a initial campaign as the direction, or
yeah, I would say maybe some of the communication methods, and if we can prioritize areas to target, geographic areas to target, you know, areas where we can have impact and a lot of reach, you know, we certainly want to get as much value from this as possible. As far as funding it, you know, my only feedback there would be that you know, increased fees would probably be my last consideration, because of you know, we want to get more adoption and licensure, and Pete made a great point about you know, we don't want to disincentivize the smaller haulers from doing things the right way.
If I could, what I would say is that keeping the motion broader gives flexibility, because I do believe that this discussion with the committee would be multifaceted. One would be centered on potentially the enforcement mechanism, how we could fund it if license fees are justified, and how to do that. One would be on the messaging and how we want to do that. And another would be whether or not we want to go to a campaign through field trip or however. But I would hope that we can keep it broader and let us feed back to the board where we're going as we go.
Agreed. All right, well, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Do we have any further questions or feedback? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We can move forward to the potential illegal open dump grant request.
Okay, so this one's been on our plate for just a bit, and it's been a very difficult situation for us to handle. There is a location here along the Louisville Loop that gets dumped on quite a bit over the bank to where we cannot get to it with our vehicles to pick up. The bank is an unstable bank, and what we have done is we're looking for vendors to cover this. The state wants this cleaned up, but they also want access blocked. If we've been working to do that, we've included installing some surveillance cameras along this route. So we've done a lot, but we can't seem to get past the cleanup stage. So I have inquired with the state as to whether or not that this would qualify for an illegal open dump grant. If that does, that would help us offset funds for this cleanup, which I think would be a good process to do, because I think that there's definitely some learnings here for people that haven't experienced an illegal open dump. So I think it would be good. But what we want to do is kind of give this a heads up to the board that we may be potentially doing this. As you can see, this is over the bank. You can't tell from where I'm at that I'm standing about 25 foot up on a unstable bank. And it's mostly car parts. We have been able to find some boxes with evidence, because if you see on the right, there has been a tree fallen across the path that's going back to there. So we are pursuing an enforcement case against an individual based upon the information that we found on those boxes. So it was vehicle parts that was dumped. It was vehicle parts in the box. So we're also looking to work with LMPD because we know that we have found vehicle parts back there from stolen vehicles. So it's a multifaceted situation, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up that we may be applying for that grant using the Waste Management District's ability to do so. And it's simply for informational purposes only. I just wanted to make you aware that it may be coming up.
Question, if I may?
Yes.
As the new guy here, what's the board's role in these issues of illegal dumping?
So an illegal open dump grant comes from the Kentucky Pride Fund, and the state allocates a certain amount of money each year. The Waste District, as the assigned waste authority in Jefferson County, is able to apply for these grants, to get these grants and give those funds, use those funds for these cleanups. Typically, we wouldn't do it unless it's a larger cleanup, because even smaller dumps can qualify. The paperwork is substantial burden to do. That's why we don't want to do it unless it's, there's something there. There are other locations that need to have an illegal open dump cleanup. One is an old location on Campground Road, I believe, Robinson Wrecking. It was an old construction and demolition debris processing facility. that would be a multi-year cleanup that's probably over $1 million. We've had the Garland Avenue cleanup, which was huge. That was a $500,000 cleanup.
Yeah.
A Valley View transfer station cleanup next to the flood wall. That was another $500,000 cleanup. So these grants, the Waste Management District is able to apply for these grants to clean up some of these bigger dumps. We've used them several times, but we don't use them a lot.
Is there, or does somebody, whether it's the board or somebody else, get involved after it's cleaned up to have more formal securing of the sites and paying for that?
Typically in a illegal open dump grant, that's what they want to see is the what are you going to do measures to prevent it from happening again? And I think that we're already addressing those at this site, which is potentially blocking that road with a gate or a log, if so be it, and the use of surveillance cameras to prevent people, to catch people going back there. I think what we have to do is once we catch a few people, we publicize that social media, people aren't going back there anymore. And I can tell you through our surveillance camera that it is a very, very busy area with people going back there for whatever reasons. Some of it is the vast majority of it are people back there that shouldn't be going back there. The good part is there are people using the Louisville Loop for what it was intended to be.
So regarding camera surveillance, I've heard some kind of mixed feedback from law enforcement about what they can do. Would we be able to take action with video footage, or would we simply have to give that to them and try to get someone to be there and catch them in the act?
So I think that gets into whether or not it's civil or criminal. There are local ordinances that are enforced through the Code Enforcement Board that are civil actions, in which case we use for illegal dumping. Generally, the cameras are catching an action that is pretty clear cut. And, while I'm not an attorney, we've been doing this for quite some time. I think what you may be talking about is red light cameras or speeding cameras, whereas there's a level of subjectivity. We're not talking about those types of cameras. Our cameras are, I guess nobody here really knows. They haven't been around long enough. They're basically trail cams, probably trail cams on steroids, but they're not the really high tech ones. We've been doing it for 10 years. Really haven't had any issues. So if we're civil, you don't have to witness it. Ordinance allows us to cite, allows LMPD to cite, even based upon citizen photographs or witness statements.
Okay, that's good. All right. So anything else on the illegal dumping? We can move to old business. We have the Feed Louisville donation request.
So Robbie, we've been kind of working to try to get a solution, or not a solution, but an opinion. I'm going to let Robbie take it from here.
Yeah, so we looked at this question pretty in depth, and we reviewed the proposal as far as I'm aware as to what it is. I was at the meeting where they came in and discussed it, and we've reached the conclusion that as long as there's sufficient parameters around this program, that the expenditure would be permissible. You would want to ensure that the benefit is to the general public and that it promotes the waste management objectives. And that objective being that it would reduce the amount of food waste that is going into the landfills. Because I know the nonprofit has a couple of goals, one being to feed underprivileged people, but also to reduce waste going into landfills. But your primary purpose for making the funding would have to be to reduce that waste going into landfills. You would want to create an agreement and a policy that goes towards ensuring that those goals are being forwarded. I think Pete has already started working on an agreement, and what I've told him is that once you have that policy and agreement in writing, that if you forward that to us, we can make sure that we can contribute to make sure that that's doing what it's supposed to do, to make sure that they are going forward with the goals that you're wanting to achieve. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you much. I think one of the things that I would add is that we do have a way to measure success, and that's through our ReTrack program, which is a program funded through the Waste Management District Board. And it's just a annual reporting mechanism for all licensees or even other people that have diversion numbers that we would like to get. So they can be registered there free of cost to them, and we would be able to see their impact over time. If that is built into the agreement that we want to see this, I believe that does serve the purpose of the Waste Management District Board and the general public in whole.
Okay. So are we waiting for next meeting for something formal to approve or vote on?
I think that we would want to have an agreement for you guys to look at before you would want to make a motion and vote on it. I think that you guys would definitely want to see the parameters behind this. And also, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we know that we're going to have other organizations that may want to receive monies from us. And I do think that it's important for us to set a policy or a guideline as to what we want, what types of donations that we can make. So I think all of that, I think coming back to you guys with a little bit more detail would be better to vote on it at that point.
Yeah, I agree completely, Pete. That's the best way to go. Policy first. Some sort of a document of what we want to potentially negotiate with this group second, and then a formal agreement for consideration be third, I'd say.
Yeah, I would add that while this process has probably taken too long for anybody, I would also say that this is the first one that we did, and it's very important that we do this right. Because the implications of spending funds improperly is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I guess lastly, the last consideration that we should make is Feed Louisville the best? Are they best positioned to achieve the objectives that we're setting forth? So we may even want to at least consider a couple other organizations that do something similar, or do something that help to achieve our objectives, just so that we're being really objective and then creating the most impact and value.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. At the same time, I think that we have to decide a couple of things more structurally. One is, do we want to establish a budget, an annual budget for donations or sponsorships? And two is, do we have the bandwidth, and two, do we want to be passive about waiting to see organizations that come to us or sort of what you were implying there, Sean, is that the board would have to go out and look for organizations that are doing the kinds of work that we want to support. And I think we just have to decide whether we want to, which of those two buckets we want to be in.
Yes.
I think given that these are government dollars, it feels really important to have a clear, like, request for proposals or something that goes out. I think otherwise it's not going to look objective if it's not clearly made known to people or organizations that might want to apply.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think having some kind of total amount, and for the sake of transparency, maybe that's also named. I think that feels important too.
If I could, would this be better set to create a branch process where you have the parameters, much like we use that the state uses, where we get one time a year, we have so much funds, and organizations can make proposals based upon the parameters of the grant. And if we have a budget, they can make their proposals. We could consider those proposals.
Yeah, and I think
based
that
upon
would keep it from being just an open,
Yeah,
no-
I
no
think that
pun
makes
intended,
sense.
just an open flood.
So one at a time.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead,
I was
Alex.
gonna
Sorry
say,
about
I think it could either be rolling and we say we'll consider proposals, on certain dates throughout the year or something. Or once annually could make sense too. I also think from a dollar perspective, I mean, thinking of it as like a charitable thing is nice, but really we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't saving us something, like we're thinking about giving money to organizations that are taking work off of our plate. And so, yeah, I don't know how to think about that or quantify it from a dollar perspective, but I think, maybe thinking through what would it cost us to do that work versus kind of it's almost like we're outsourcing, I guess, is how I'm thinking about this.
That's actually one of the parameters for when you can do this type of work or not, is the public purpose. Is it kind of replacing a governmental goal, and you're using this entity to do something that the government could otherwise do, but that entity is in a better place to do it. So that's actually one of the considerations that need to be taken into account when you make these type of decisions. And I think your all's discussion actually fits with what we were thinking, that you needed to spell out a policy, and then that sets forth waste management district goals, and then make sure that this money is going towards those goals.
Yeah, I think this is good. I think Bruce Burrow brought up at the last meeting that Indiana has some type of a process where it scores the candidates. And I think maybe we can get with Bruce, maybe see how they set their program up, or look at some other processes, and we could maybe come up with something pretty quick.
May I speak to that for a moment?
Sure.
Actually, the award meeting is tomorrow. We'll be awarding $2 million for recycling initiatives within the state of Indiana. But the most important factor is you need to have a structured application and review process, because unfortunately, not everyone gets their money. And you have to justify why they didn't get their money through the review process at times. And you want to have something that you can work off of to show that. So I will be meeting with them tomorrow. I'm going to discuss possibly sharing our evaluation process and application with you. After that meeting, we can talk further. There's also the Central Indiana Waste Diversion Process. Again, it's funded by the tipping fees that go towards recycling in the state of Indiana. It's going to be about $5.5 million. I believe will be awarded, that our board will award in January. But again, it's a very detailed application review and award process.
Yeah, that sounds really good. You know, I'm getting pretty excited about this. I think that we've already created a great program in our minds and looking forward to putting it on paper.
Okay. So, so are we sending this to the advisory board?
Yes. Did we get a motion for that, or Bruce? I think that's where it was at, whether or not we needed the motion or not.
Just tell us what you want us to do and we'll do it.
Let's go ahead and make a motion to send this process to the advisory committee.
So moved.
All right, Brian with the motion. Can we hear a second?
Second.
All right, I heard a second from Deetra first. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes, and we're sending this to the advisory committee. Thank you, guys. And speaking of which, we're heading to the advisory committee for advisory committee report.
Very well. Good evening, everyone. We did have a meeting last week, and while brief, I thought we had some interesting discussion. We did receive a letter from Carl Bradley regarding a technology and innovation subcommittee, which I believe I may speak on the board's behalf, the committee's behalf, but I think there was a lot of interest in it. It was very insightful and checking out what all's available and how we could pursue that. My personal thought was, though, that there's going to be a lot of time invested by committee members on that. And that's something we may have to consider. But regardless, we work on behalf of the board's wishes. So if this is something that the board wants us to look into, I believe the committee would be more than happy to do that. But we would do it at the direction of a vote of the 109 board. And so you may want to consider that. We also had a very nice review of the capture rate study status, as well as the cost of services status. And then Ms. Karen Maynard brought us up to speed on a lot of other stuff that she has going on. She's a very busy lady. So, any questions for me? Karen, do you have anything you want to add as well?
As far as the Technology and Innovation Committee or subcommittee of the advisory committee, I think everyone thought it was a good idea, but I did feel that maybe everyone was hoping for a little more direction, more specific direction. I mean, Carl had a whole page, so maybe that was enough. So I don't know if it might benefit having Carl present at the next advisory committee meeting to have more discussion if the board as a whole wants to give that direction to the committee, then I think that would be beneficial to have Carl there for sure.
Yeah, I'm not an IT guy, and I had a hard time reading it and understanding it. It was a bit above my pay grade in that regard. So I really can't really comment on it other than that.
So, on behalf of the committee, I mean, we will do whatever the board directs us to do.
I'll have obviously no problem to share more if there's any interest to about the idea and the concept. So if I'll, kind of abstain other than waiting to hear what the other members of the board think and kind of follow that direction.
Carl, I would like to say, being in the industry, I respect and admire your insight because we have to stay on top of technology within the industry. And I think there would be a lot of interest from other fellow committee members for this type of action once they understand all the modifications we make, through the processes that we implement. So I look forward to it. I look forward to your discussion with us.
Yeah, one thing I would like to add, and I've been intrigued by this idea for some time. We don't necessarily have to keep this centered on the solid waste industry, but it could also be broadened to ideas of using technology to clean, ideas of using technology for startups, and that could go along with our grant process in spurring innovation. So it can be, I think it's a wide open thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the industry. It can be things that help us in the community with our other goals, which is litter, dump cleanups, maybe even enforcement, recycling of hard to recycle items and the like. So I'm intrigued by it, and I'm glad that we're going to start to take a look at it.
Yeah, I just want to add real quickly too, and thanks, Pete. That was my thinking is how do we use technology to benefit, all the operations? Like I say, whether it's, someone doing a manual job or just record keeping or, data collection or whatever. So it was just the idea of how do we use technology to advance the things that we're trying to do.
Any other input, questions? Would anybody like to take action or make a motion to move forward? Okay. All right. I didn't hear anything, so it sounds like maybe we'll wait to hear a little bit more information at our next meeting. It does sound really intriguing. It does sound like something that can add some value in the future. All right. So we move to staff report.
Is that me?
Yes, that's
Okay.
updating the board on the Kentucky Composting Conference and what took place, and I think your presentation.
Okay, so yes, we did have the Kentucky Composting Conference at U of L. It's the second one, and I was not involved last year, but we had I was kind of brought into it by I don't even remember who, Rachel Rorks and Betsy Rui, I think maybe mentioned that I could maybe help out with that. So we attended, and there was a lot of expertise. The keynote speaker was Jean Bonitel. She is from the, gosh, it's in New York. She lives in New York.
Cornell.
So yes, Cornell. And thank you. So she brought in a lot of expertise, and it was really neat to meet her and hear all the things about composting efforts going on further north. And we also had some other speakers from Kentucky talking. I mean, one guy talked about the process of just getting all the permits to have a composting facility, which was, I think, very beneficial for anyone even considering that. It was insightful, and some farmers that use compost. So, and we were also partnered with the U of L community composting site. So we were out there all afternoon. I don't know if anyone has been to that site with Dr. Brian Barnes, but it was, so that's just kind of some of the things that we did. And the second day there was a panel with some questions from some state legislators, and and I was on that panel. It was basically some questions about policy and ways to kind of boost the use of compost, the creation of compost, and all kinds of stuff. So it was a really neat time. It was heavy. There was a lot of information coming at us, and for 2 days, but it was good. So I enjoyed being a part of that. And that was just this past Thursday and Friday.
Is there anything that we could share, like on socials or maybe at like future events, to help, boost interest in and adoption for composting?
Well, as far as what I am most involved in would be residential backyard composting. This conference entailed a lot more industry information, so it was neat to hear. But as far as our part, we, the Waste District had purchased a truckload of Earth Machine compost bins, and we did a whole truckload sale of kind of trying to get people to buy them and pick them up. But that was a few years ago, but we just purchased a lot of extra so that we could sell them at cost as people decide to that they want to try out backyard composting. So that's, I feel, I felt like I was out there and on a panel and with experts in different aspects of composting. But that I feel is, as far as education goes, the most we've been involved in. So, we've gained some ideas of other ways that we can be involved in education, but backyard composting is a big one. And so we're all for that. And we can, someone even asked if we had if we have compost coaches. And I'm like, well, if someone needed help, then we would help. But I'd never thought about having a term for that. And then she said, well, I would love to do that. So so I want her to be a No Waste ambassador. And I thought that was a great addition to just what we can offer as education, is having compost coaches. Because sometimes you get an idea and you want to try something at home and you're not sure what you're doing, or whatever. So that was kind of fun. But that's mostly of what I've done as far as putting information out there. But I am all for more.
And is it easy for people to find where they can request those compost bins?
It's I would say if you're looking for it on our website, you can easily find it. But I do have to push that out every once in a while as far as on social, and just to make people aware, which I usually do in the spring and fall, just to kind of, get the word out more of where you can find those.
Karen, do you think it would be possible to include some questions in your No Waste Wednesday regarding composting, and potentially, I don't know if you can link from Nextdoor, but send people to some of the resources that you found at the Kentucky Composting
Yeah, I certainly can. I typically do in the, like I said, with fall and spring, I usually kind of shape a question around that, or about like, which of these items should not go in your backyard compost bin, and then share how, if you're interested in that. I've done it with old people, like if they, are you interested in doing this, or no way, or also if you don't have a backyard, you can't necessarily do that, but the Louisville Compost Co-op is we kind of partnered with the U of L Community Composting, and they offer at a cost, you can have a residential service with 5-gallon buckets. So that's pretty good too, if it's not something you really want to do yourself, but you would love to be able to compost. So yes, it's another informational piece that I just need to keep pushing out there. As far as sharing resources I learned, I can't say I've had time this week to even unpack everything in my notes. So, and Diana attended as well. So, we'll be in the car going to Columbus Rumpke's facility tomorrow. So maybe we can spend some time discussing what we learned and figure out some things that we could share.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to see us, support that in the future, as it certainly would intuitively lead to waste reduction.
Yeah.
And then just also kind of build the culture of awareness and conservation. All right. Well, thank you for that report. That sounds great. While we're on that, I don't know if we've mentioned it earlier, but just a reminder for that the conference in November. So if you're going, make sure that you've carved out some time to attend. The agenda, I believe that the events are all listed online now, so you can make sure that you attend for the presentations that you want.
Yeah, and I can still register people if anyone has decided. I know like Debbie and Deetra, I think we're kind of trying to wait to see if it could fit in their schedule, but just let me know. You can email me if you, I sent an email to those that were not registered. So if you received that, then you know that you were not registered, except for Alex, that I totally forgot. So I'm glad I did it that way. So we got her on the list, as she should have been. So yeah, just let me know.
Do we want to talk about any logistics issues? Like, I know parking there is very costly. Maybe do some carpooling on certain days, certain times.
Yeah, if you'd like, whenever, as we get a little bit closer, maybe a week out, I can make like an email group with everyone that has registered. And then we can discuss if we want to do a carpool.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, anything else on the conference? Okay, well, that'll take us to announcements.
Well, before I get into the 109 board meeting date, I did want to mention something that was kind of late breaking. This will be Deborah Thompson's last 109 board meeting as a board member. We have received another person that has been approved through the council committee and is likely to be approved tomorrow. I want to say thank you, but I think that we will have Deborah back to present her proclamation of thanks from the mayor. And I can tell you, not a lot of people understand waste in this community and the dedication that Deborah has given, and many of you give by attending these board meetings for free of charge. I just want to say, Deborah, I greatly appreciate everything that you've done, and we'll be honoring you in the future. And we'll have another board member here to represent District C at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you so much, Pete. It's been my pleasure. I've learned a lot. I'm a great recycler now. I mean, you just wouldn't even believe it, but and I'm really picky about my alley. I mean, I go down the alley and I know all the people that do what they're supposed to do, believe me. But anyway, I've learned a lot, and I've really appreciated that I'm on the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
On to the next 109 board meeting. That board meeting falls on the 27th of November, which I don't think anybody really wants to have a board meeting on that day. So my question to the board is, do we want to move it or cancel it for the month? And I'm not sure what it does for December, but I know each year this gets to be a little bit more difficult. And of course, in December, the board meeting falls on Christmas Day. So I don't think anybody wants to be here for Christmas Day. So it could be that we
Are we
conduct a
dedicated or not?
Well, we'll see. I'm not sure I'm dedicated that much. But,
I guess one thought I had, Pete, if I may.
Yeah.
Maybe we can meet the same night as the advisory committee, you know, whether part of the advisory committee or maybe right after the advisory committee on those 2 dates, those 2 months, November and December, unless you just want to cancel it.
I think that might be good. I think that's a good idea. Maybe we can have the advisory committee meeting and the board meeting together, and it'll be in the holidays. So maybe we can make it a little bit of a holiday celebration, and everybody can be in person and
because they're the week
get to know
before.
each other.
I'm sorry, they're the
Yeah,
week before.
they are the week before. So it can be the week before or the week before Christmas. However you guys want to do it, or we can do it both. Just depends on what you guys want to do.
Yeah, I would assume that doing it next month at least would be probably easier for people if we're picking one or the other than December. I know a lot of people go out of town, have family in, they're hosting, so it can be pretty hectic. But I like the idea of doing it at least on that same day, that 4:30 time. So it's November 20th at 4:30 is the next advisory committee meeting. That time might be a little bit of a stretch for me, but if that's the time that we're meeting at, I'll make it happen.
I believe that we can change it, the advisory committee meeting, to 5:30. I think that would be incumbent upon us to do so to allow the public to attend as well. 4:30 is a bit early for the general public.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea of a joint meeting is good.
All right. So does somebody want to, I guess, make a motion to set the next board meeting at, or on November 20th, Wednesday, November 20th at 5:30?
Well, I'll be happy to make that motion.
All right, can we hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes. Next meeting is Wednesday, November 20th at 5:30 p.m. And it sounds like we're meeting in person.
Yes, what I will say is that we may need to look at another location. One, because there may be construction here, and having the committee and the board here at the same time may stretch the limits of our room. So I think that we'll research and see if there's a good place for us to do that.
All right, perfect. So venue maybe to be decided.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any other announcements?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, thank you, Pete. Well, with that, we can hear a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
In a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yep, thanks, everyone.
I
Meeting concluded at 7:02.